Welcome back to our kitchen. This is Light for Food. I am Micah. I don't have my kids today. Our oldest one is with my parents and he goes there every Saturday, so that's their day, which is kind of fun. And my younger one is sleeping. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have time when no one's screaming at you. Kudos to you, all you mamas and dads who are making it happen, working, and oh, and there she is, she's waking up. So I'll go get her. I'll be right back. Here she is, Daddy's princess. That's what the shirt says. Okay, so anyway, we're here to talk about starter. So this is especially for Fat Vix on Instagram. I did not make that up, that's their name. So hello Fat Vix. They asked about our starter. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Okay, so this is how I got my sourdough starter started. If I can do it, you can do it too. This is my third attempt. My first two failed and one started to grow mold. So I'm really proud of this one. I think I should probably name it because it's doing very, very well. I replenished it this morning, so if you can see really closely, there's a lot of little bubbles in it. Oh, Maria. And that's actually something I did after I replenished my sourdough starter, because you have to regularly feed it. I started to count the bubbles, and I kept all the kind of what it looked like, what it smelled like, how much it expanded, what time I checked it, all those little details. I kept a journal, as crazy as that sounds, because I was so determined to get it up and running, because I love sourdough. I know, sweetheart, he does too. So the recipe that I used is from Nourished Kitchen, nourishedkitchen.com. I just had to check it. And it's called How to Make a Sourdough Starter. And all you need is really flour, water. If there's an established starter that you would like to add, there's that option. Although I didn't do that. I didn't know where to get a starter, and some people jealously guard their starters. One of the baker ladies was like, no, that will not be done. You might as well sell all of our bread to them. So some people could be like that. But if you find a friend who will give you some of their starter, because that will also help kind of kick off your starter, because you'll already have cultured yeast, cultured bacteria, and you don't have to wait for them to mature or grow. The first step is to mix a 1/4 cup of flour with 3 tablespoons of water. After that, you let it sit for 12 hours, then you mix 1/2 cup of water and 1/3 cup of filtered water. And I did that for about 5 days until it started to get nice and bubbly, and it started to smell like really sour. And that's a really good sign. I'm not quite sure why it smells sour, but if you look on Google, you will be sure, and then you can tell me. I think that's the alcohol actually that's being given off as the bacteria eats. You want to look out for the smell. Some people taste their starters. I haven't really tasted my starter, although I might try that right now. Always make sure that you have clean implements when you're mixing or going into your starter, because any soap particle that goes in there, it could grow mold, which is what happened to my second starter. Yeah, it tastes kind of like what it smells like. It's very sour. I can't believe I just did that, but I do anything for you. Not really anything. Don't go at me with weird requests. Mine took about 5 days to mature. Some people say 7 to 10 days. That didn't happen for me, and I don't know why. I started to make bread with it after 5 days. So the key thing with the ingredients is that filtered water is probably best. I got a mature starter the first time not using filtered water, just distilled water. I left it out on the counter for 12 hours, and then the morning after or the evening after, waiting 12 hours, I put it in the starter. And that made me a pretty okay starter. I made bread with that starter and it wasn't a success, and I wasn't quite sure why, but now looking back, it was because I didn't own a scale. So if you want to make sourdough, get a scale, because it's a way of really standardizing measurements. Someone in the UK could say 100 grams, and we would say this, it would be the same here, 100 grams, right? And then, you know, you just have to troubleshoot for other little details. But it's really important to get the measurements and the ratios right. If the dough is too wet, it'll fall flat. If it's too tough, it might not expand. So you'd want to get a scale. You want to get clean implements. So I just mix mine using a chopstick. Because it's what really gets to the bottom of this tall container. This is actually like a blender, a hand blender container that my husband, he loves gifting me with kitchen gadgets. It's got a cover, and you don't want it airtight because you'd want some oxygen to get there so that the bacteria can breathe. So this I found suffices, and it worked really, really super well. I love that you can see the size and how much it expands, because for me that's a really good indication of whether it's ready to bake with. I don't even do the float test. Like, looking at it, sometimes I'm just like, bubbles, ding, 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 put it in bread. So you just kind of learn to watch out for those things. Now, these things it might not be what you look out for. Like, you might do the float test, you might, you know, do other things to kind of make sure to help you in your baking. So whatever it is that you need to do that. Disclaimer, what might work for me might not work for you. So you really do have to troubleshoot. And I found I had to do that a lot. I did a lot of researching. There's this sourdough community online that's super, super helpful. And you get like crazy sourdough bakers in there that go 100% hydration. And these are all my steps. I'm looking at that, I'm like, I just get so overwhelmed because my steps are pretty simple. I'll probably go over another video just to share with you the steps that I do to get to the bread that I'm currently baking, because it also changes, which is so hands-on, and there's so much manipulation. You feel like you really have a hand anyway, bad pun, a hand in making the bread. So yeah, I will go over all those points. As you can notice, it might have changed a little bit. The starter is gone. In its place is a bottle. The starter went into the fridge because another pro tip is that cool temperatures retard the rate at which the bacteria eat and expand. And hot temperatures or warm temperatures encourage them. So I noticed that the sourdough starter was starting to smell a little bit like alcohol. So that to me is a sign that it needs to stop doing its thing. Like, it needs to stop eating. So I put it back in the fridge, and that's why it's not here. But anyway, I was just gonna go over my journal. So I recorded the time that I replenished it with flour and water, and you need to feed it constantly when you're first starting. So I put the time down, the appearance, the smell, and how much it expands. So the appearance and the smell, obviously before I replenished it, and then how much it expands, appearance and smell afterwards. So I found that helped me a lot, just kind of keep tabs on it. Let's pick a day that's a little farther on, when it really started to pick up. February 8th, day 3/4. Half a cup flour, a third of a cup of water, 8:10 in the morning. Before, stringy, clumpy when stirred, then bubbly, some liquid forming under the surface, smells sour in a good way. After 2.5 cups of yield, still has that sour smell, bubbly. 8:07, hooch, bubbly and thin, smells almost chemically. That was after I poured off some of it. I poured off half of the starter because it was getting too big for the container. And I thought, let's get rid of some of the starter so that, you know, we can still fit it into the container that we use. What that did is kill off a lot of get rid of a lot of the bacteria that was already there, that was propagating. And it stopped expanding a lot after that. So that to me told me that maybe you should just leave the starter for a bit, let the bacteria grow, and don't pour off. And I think that's actually what killed my first starter. And I didn't make a journal for the loaf because I've done it already a few times, and Yeah, I just didn't think it was necessary. Some people say 7 to 10 days is when your sourdough starter is ready to make a loaf. For me, it was day 6/7. So I'm not sure why it was faster. But after it's matured, after you know that it's ready to make loaves, then, you know, after it's like bubbly and it expands and it smells sour, after all that, you don't have to refresh it every 12 hours. You can refresh it only when you make a loaf, which makes things a little easier. So when I make a loaf, I refresh it about 2 hours before I have to make the leaven, because that is, I found, is its peak rise. That's when the bubbles are the bubbliest and it's expanded to its peak. I think that pretty much about covers everything in how I made my sourdough starter. So it is kind of an involved process and you do have to be committed to it. And, you know, but again, things that are worth doing are often difficult, and it may sound difficult, but it's actually not. Once you get into the rhythm of, okay, 12 hours from now, I'm going to refill it, and all you really have to do is take your measuring cups, plunk them in the starter, make sure you mix really, really well so that all the flour is incorporated into the water. Because if bacteria in the starter don't have enough flour to eat, it starts to smell chemically and you'll develop hooch on top, and that's actually refuse from the bacteria. In all of my research, this is what worked for me, and I hope that you give it a try. And if you do give it a try, then link in our video at the comments below, and I would love to hear how your starter gets started. So thank you for watching. It's been super awesome to talk about this with you and kind of chat, and see you on the other side of baking. Good night. Okay. Welcome. Okay. Why do you have to be such a... Okay. What am I talking about again? Starter. Okay. It's really gross. It's so slimy. I can't believe I did that. It's so slimy. But it makes really good bread. So, sorry. Okay.